A very good morning, and my thanks to the Portuguese Insurance and Pension Fund Supervisory Authority for the invitation. Ladies and gentlemen, we are approaching the second Christmas during this COVID-19 pandemic. Of course, we had all hoped that by now the pandemic would be behind us, but that's not the case, and we continue to be vigilant. Portugal is approaching a vaccination rate of nearly 90%, setting an example for member states who have not yet achieved high vaccination levels. As we continue to deal with the public health crisis, we're also working towards the economic recovery. We are investing huge amounts of money to rebuild, and we have an opportunity to prioritise sustainability. We all know the urgency of the climate crisis. COP26 in Glasgow has just finished. It rightly dominated the headlines over the last 2 weeks as we seek to bridge the gap between climate targets and climate action. Implementing our policies to achieve our targets is a high priority. And the European Green Deal is the EU's plan to deal with climate change. We need to be climate neutral by 2050, and we have legislated for that target. And we've also set a target to cut emissions by 55% by 2030, in less than 9 years' time. And because of the European Green Deal, we're putting the fight against climate change at the core of our work. Sustainability is at the heart of the EU's recovery programme, Next Generation EU. Portugal is doing its part too, with the Portuguese recovery plan under Next Generation EU devoting 38% of spending on climate investment. We need massive investment to recover from the pandemic, and we can use that to help reach our climate targets. But public funds will not be enough for us to address the scale of investment needed to address the climate challenge. We need the financial system to become green, and it needs to help fund the recovery and the transition to sustainability of the wider economy. We need the private sector, especially the insurance and pensions industry, to play a key role, and the EU will help you do that. Back in July, the Commission announced a new sustainable finance strategy. It includes ambitious policies that facilitate transition finance, make sustainable finance more inclusive, boost the resilience of our financial system and step up global ambition. To finance the transition of the wider economy, investors need clear signals from companies on the steps they're taking to reduce their environmental impact. And the EU is taking action to improve the availability of information on sustainability throughout the financial system. The cornerstone of the EU's sustainable finance work is the EU Taxonomy. It is a classification system, a sort of dictionary that increases clarity about what economic activities are green. Insurers and pension funds will be able to use it to make their investment practices more sustainable. We're also using the taxonomy to develop other sustainable finance tools, like the European Green Bond Standard. Once adopted, this standard will allow bond issuers to clearly demonstrate that they are funding sustainable EU taxonomy-aligned projects. And investors will be able to rely on this standard to know that their investments are truly sustainable. We're also increasing transparency by getting companies to report on sustainability and putting sustainability reporting on an equal footing with financial reporting. To make sure this happens, the Commission proposed the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. Under this directive, all large companies and all listed companies will have to report on what impact climate risks and other environmental risks have on their business, as well as their own impact on society and the environment. At the very heart of this proposal are EU sustainability reporting standards. These standards will lay out exactly what companies have to report and how, with a simpler set of standards for listed SMEs. Insurers and pension funds will also benefit from this clear and comparable sustainability information when making investment decisions. But we will not fully succeed in our efforts if we do not have everyone with us. We want to bring businesses, especially smaller businesses, and citizens with us. So, we need to make sustainable finance more inclusive. This includes improving insurance coverage from climate and environmental risks, which will help reduce the costs of climate change for taxpayers. The Commission wants to better understand the extent of natural disaster insurance coverage and start a climate resilience dialogue with relevant stakeholders. We'll work closely with EIOPA on this. With the first Climate Delegated Act on the taxonomy, we've taken a step forward. Insurance against climate risks is considered an enabling activity to adapt to climate change. And this should incentivise insurers to increase the coverage of climate risks and, by extension, protect their clients against climate change risks. We need our financial sector itself to be resilient to climate risk, and we need to ensure the sector contributes to the sustainable transition. We need EU rules for the insurance sector to reflect the long-term nature of the insurance business to ensure funding flows to sustainable projects. Today, insurers hold more than €10 trillion in assets, which is equivalent of close to 3/4 of the EU's GDP. Clearly, they are important institutional investors and will be essential to financing the green transition. In September, the Commission put forward a proposal to update our Solvency II rules. This review will release up to €30 billion of capital, increasing the insurance sector's investment capacity. The review will help develop the Capital Markets Union and boost sustainable investment with a long-term view. And it will ensure the climate risks we're already facing are properly accounted for. Insurers will have to include the climate change risk in their investment and underwriting activities. The Commission will ask EIOPA to assess whether a differentiated prudential treatment of sustainable investments is justified and whether natural catastrophe risk is still being properly addressed in view of climate science. Like the insurance sector, pension funds hold assets worth trillions of euros, which will be key to financing the transition to carbon neutrality. The prudential rules for the sector are set out in the Institutions for Occupational Retirement Provision Directive, IOP2, and this was one of the first pieces of EU financial services legislation that referred to environmental, social and governance risks. While we still need to see how those rules work in practice, we will consider the need for further steps as we prepare the next review of IOP2. In particular, the Commission will assess whether the fiduciary duties and stewardship rules of pension funds should be clarified to increase their contribution to our European Green Deal targets. There are also questions left to answer when we look at sustainable finance on the international stage. The European Union is a leader in sustainable finance. We are developing ambitious policies and sharing what we've learned along the way. We chair the International Platform on Sustainable Finance, which brings together policymakers representing over half the world's emissions, population and GDP. And we were pleased to participate fully at COP26. We are committed to doing our part here in the EU, and we need the rest of the world to act with us. So to conclude, we need to make sure that as we rebuild our economies following the COVID-19 pandemic, we prioritise sustainability. We need to accelerate the sustainable transition. There is no time to waste. And to make this happen, private finance needs to flow towards businesses and projects that contribute to building a more sustainable economy and society. At the Commission, we're committed to developing policies and tools to help the financial sector become a force for positive change. We want to work together with national authorities and industry, including the insurance companies and pension funds, to help them drive the sustainable transition. The changes we need to make may not be easy, but they are absolutely necessary. Good morning and thank you for your attention.